Week one is officially in the books, and with that, we have another edition of Power Rankings coming right up. But before we do, quickly want to say subscribe if you are new. Be greatly appreciated. Leave a like and comment down below your own thoughts for week one and your expectations for week two. Now let's get right into it. We begin with the San Francisco 49ers as an honorable mention. With CMC being banged up entering this week, it kind of makes sense that the 49ers offense was going to struggle a bit. Also, with George Kittle going out with a hamstring early on in that game, it made sense that there was going to be some issues with this offense. But even then, CMC still played well, 69 yards on the ground, 73 yards receiving. Purdy threw relatively well, 277 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also threw 2 interceptions, and that's kind of what kept this a close one between them and Seattle. Ricky Pearsall played really well, 108 yards on 4 catches. Kittle going down sucked. He had a touchdown in this game, but at the same time, that's kind of the 49ers the past few seasons is they keep dealing with injuries at really inopportune times. And week one, having one of your best pass catchers go down does not help by any means. The defense, though, they really shine through. They held the Seahawks to just 13 points, and it made it a tough debut for Sam Darnold in the Emerald City. Only had about 150 yards through the air. Solid showing against the run as well. Seattle only had about 3.2 yards per carry. The health is the main concern for San Francisco, to no one's surprise after what we've seen so far. We'll see how they can keep up and if they can stay relatively healthy. But that's my main concern, aside from seeing if Purdy can get back to a solid form. Again, I think he played fine, and if they do get to a healthier spot, that will help the concerns surrounding Brock Purdy. The Denver Broncos are also an honorable mention. They got the win, but it was a very, very ugly game that they played. In the game that I felt like Tennessee was going to be able to keep it close, which they did, but at the same time, Denver should have been able to run away with this one. The offense looked rough the majority of this game. 4 turnovers on the day, including 2 interceptions by Bo Nix. Only had 176 yards and a touchdown as well to go alongside all of that. It was a pass game that couldn't quite find its footing. Meanwhile, though, the ground game looked really solid. J.K. Dobbins led the way, 63 yards and a touchdown. Rookie R.J. Harvey, 70 yards on 6 carries. It was a really effective day for this ground game. The defense, they did not miss their footing and did not miss a beat at all from how they played last year. They made Cam Ward's debut very tough on him, sacking him 6 times. Only 112 yards through the air for Tennessee, and the Titans were held out of the end zone, the only team to not score a touchdown so far this week as of recording this. And no Titan receiver had more than 30 yards on the day. It's a Broncos team that's going to be very competitive in the AFC West, and for now they come in as honorable mention, as the hope is they can get some of that sloppiness out of their game. Number 10 is the Los Angeles Rams. It wasn't the greatest of games offensively for them, but a win is a win, especially against a team like the Houston Texans, who I'm still expecting to be a playoff team this season. Stafford threw the ball well, 245 yards and a touchdown. 130 of those yards went to Puka Nacua as he continues his electric career so far. Kyron Williams, 66 yards and a touchdown on the ground, continuing his style of play that works really well for this Rams offense. But again, only 14 points was a little bit rough. Though the defense, they really shined, completely shutting down this Houston offense. Picked off Stroud once, sacked him 3 times. And the one thing is that the ground defense could have been better, but it also wasn't terrible. 4.2 yards per carry given up, roughly on the high end of the spectrum of where you want to be for a ground defense, but still not bad. And if they can just get the offensive production back up to snuff and back to what it was last year and in 2023, they're going to be just fine, and they're going to go through this season with relatively ease. So I do like the Rams going forward. Number 9 is the Los Angeles Chargers, and that is how you make a statement right from the jump. They surprised me with this win, definitely. Starting with the defense, they played great, holding the Chiefs to just 6 points in the first half. They made some key plays throughout the second half as well to maintain the lead, like Tierra Tart to get in the hand on that 2-point try. The second half defense as a whole, though, didn't play great. They gave up 3 straight scoring drives, with the red zone defense from last year somewhat making an appearance. They held the Chiefs to 1 for 3 from the red zone in this one. Offensively, Justin Herbert looked great out there with the Chargers, going away from the heavy ground approach we saw last year to one that was definitely more pass focused in this game. 24 for 34 passing, 318 yards, and 3 touchdowns through the air. a fantastic showing. The ground game left a little bit to be desired, but they are missing Rashawn Slater for the year, and Mekhi Becton dealing with that stomach bug was in and out of the game. So that's something that probably the offensive line will improve throughout the season. But even with that, Justin Herbert did not really get dirty in this game. He was held upright in the pocket. They kept giving him great pockets to throw from. And all around, the Chargers surprised me with how they played and how much of a collective they played as. Played really well, got a massive win early on in this season. And all of a sudden, they're being viewed, at least by me now, all of a sudden, as a true contender in the AFC West that looks to be wide open, and the Chargers have a head start on that, so they come in at number 9. Number 8 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and at least to me, that was a pretty impressive performance from Baker Mayfield, all things considered. The yards don't really show it, only about 167 on the day, but it was a 3-touchdown day, which is an impressive day no matter what in the NFL. 2 of those went to rookie Emeka Egbuka, who hit the ground running for his debut. The ground game left a little bit to be desired. Bucky Irvin and Rashad White combined for 16 carries and 51 yards on the day. Definitely not the greatest. You want to get that to a more productive state, but you will kind of take it at this stage of the season. It's still very early on. The defense struggled a bit against the air, but it wasn't due to the receiver room of the Falcons. It was due to Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts, who were the main targets for Michael Penix in this game. He looked solid. Though the ground defense for Tampa played pretty damn solid, only 2.5 yards per carry given up, and this remains their division until further notice. Was a great win in hostile territory against a team that beat them twice last year. Getting that win in week 1 is going to be massive for the future and for how the season is going to go for Tampa. And because of that, and for now, they stick at number 8. Number 7 is the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is the lowest I have ever put the Chiefs on an edition of Power Rankings, as this was a pretty disappointing game for the Chiefs, and they still had a chance to come back in the end. They fell short. Argument there that it was Chris Jones' fault for breaking the contain he was supposed to be on, or maybe someone else was supposed to be containing Herbert. Either way, they lose this game. And the biggest loss of this is Xavier Worthy and not knowing his status for the foreseeable future. He went down early in this game, and just based off of the opening drive, you can tell that his role in the offense was supposed to be massive this season. We'll see how long he will be out for, but that's a tough loss for this offense. But again, the defense, they had their back a bit. They kept them in this game, although the passing defense was basically non-existent. They still had a chance in this game at the end. The key thing is, though, they had penalties up front on the offensive line, like they seem to always do at this stage of the season. They had this happen last year, happened 2 years ago. Jawan Taylor being the main culprit of it all. But they had some penalties up front. They missed an extra point. They failed a 2-point conversion. They left points on the board, but they still had a chance to win this game. Those are points they desperately needed towards the end. Their upcoming schedule is not the easiest by any means, and all eyes are pointing towards the Chiefs now to see how they bounce back from this. They're based off their week 1 performance. It's not a great sign for how this season is going to go, but it is still the Chiefs. I didn't want to push them too far back in the rankings. I felt like 7 was just enough, so they fall there. Number 6 is the Washington Commanders. A really solid showing for the Commanders to begin this season. They handled business against the Giants. Jaden Daniels had a fine showing, 63% completion, 233 yards, and a touchdown through the air. This on top of him running 11 times and having 68 yards on the ground. The ground game as a whole played pretty well. Rookie Bill Krotsky-Merritt had 82 yards and a touchdown on 10 carries in this game. Deebo Samuel made his presence felt, 77 yards receiving, and the defense truly showcased this improved defensive unit that they have this season, as Russell Wilson and the Giants were held to simply just 6 points in this game. And all around, it was offensive performance that made Giants fans kind of wish they had Daniel Jones back after how he played in week 1. But this Commanders defense continues to show that they're a better defensive unit than they were last year. It is the Giants, so we'll see if they can continue it. But at least just from week 1, I'm seeing good things from this Commanders team. They were in the NFC Championship game last year. They have a lot of expectations on them. This is a very, very good start to this season with all those expectations. So they come in at number 6. Number 5 is the Baltimore Ravens. I still don't know how they lost this game. Yet here we are the day after, and they lost by a point. They were in firm control the majority of this game. The offense was moving the ball incredibly effective the entire time. Yet within the final 2 minutes, game on the line, they needed the first down. They could not get it. And there's two decisions there that I'm still confused about and questioning. The first one is on 3rd and 9. Why is Derrick Henry not in, even just to give you an option to utilize him or to make the defense second guess what you're doing? That definitely could have helped things out on that end. The other thing is, it's 4th and 3. You have Derrick Henry, who's averaging 9.4 yards per carry in this game, and Lamar Jackson, who's averaging 11.7 yards per carry, and you don't try and go for it to ice the game. Even if you fail, you at least put yourself in a little bit of a better spot, since you'll get the ball back sooner than punting the ball away and the Bills having to go pretty much the length of the field. It's something that doesn't make the most sense to me. And even then, your defense was not playing well in this game. You gave up 41 points in the end. You gave up nearly 400 passing yards, and in that end of game situation, you know they're going to pass the ball exclusively. You have a passing defense that's not working, and you trusted them more than someone who should have won the MVP last year, and someone who definitely also had an argument for the MVP last year in Derrick Henry. It was a very confusing end of the game that Baltimore decided to do. I'm not going to punish them too much because the Bills are the Buffalo Bills, one of the best teams in the AFC. But at the end of the day, you needed to play better and make better decisions. You could have won this game. You should have won this game. And they're going to come in at number 5. Number 4 is the Detroit Lions. And even if you told me going into the week that they were going to lose this game, I would not be expecting a performance like that out of them. The defense, they looked rough, eventually somewhat found a footing, but they couldn't really get home on the rush, and covered on the back end was very rough at times, especially early on. The run defense played fine and was probably the bright spot on the day for the Lions in this game. The offense was struggling, and even if they were able to move the ball, it wasn't with much consistency or even resulting where they wanted it to. Gibbs and Montgomery were held in check, and the ground game looked off the majority of this one. At the same time, they never fully felt out of it. It always felt like they had a chance because you know what this Lions offense could be. It's week 1. It came against another top team on the road, so won't overact too much. But the Lions need to figure out their style of team this year. You can't be having Jared Goff throwing the ball 39 times a game. That's not how you're going to win games in the NFL. That's not how you're going to win games in the NFC North. But they still are the Lions. They feel like they can bounce back pretty effectively. They're going to have a little bit tougher of a hill to climb because they're technically 2 games back over the Packers now, since the Packers just beat them. But we will see. The Lions' upcoming schedule isn't the toughest. They have the Chiefs in a few weeks. That will be a nice big test for them. But for now, they come in at number 4. Number 3 is the Green Bay Packers. And the final score does not tell the full story for this game. The Packers dominated for a large majority of this. They played a great bend don't break style of football defensively that saw them hold the number 1 offense last year to 13 points, with 7 of those coming in garbage time. Parsons registered his first sack on the Lions' final drive, and you can feel how much just his presence is felt in Green Bay, both by the fans and by his fellow players and the coaching staff. It was a fantastic thing to watch. The offense was on fire throughout the first half. They settled down a little bit in the second half, but they were still able to move the ball well. Josh Jacobs is set up for having a really good season, and this Packers team has the talent to be able to make a run this season. Jordan Love played well. The receiver room and tight end room showcased why I've been very high on them throughout this offseason entering this season. And the O-line was very effective at limiting this Lions front 7. All around, this Packers team went into week 1. Not a lot of people had faith in them until they traded for Micah Parsons. And even then, all eyes were on Parsons specifically. And throughout this entire game, a ton of other guys stepped up and did their jobs really well and helped them get this massive win to begin the season. I am still really high on the Packers. And at this point, they might be my favorites to exit the NFC. It is still very early on, so we will see. But for now, the Packers are in my top 3 and number 3. Number 2 is the Buffalo Bills. The most improbable win of the week goes to them. And they're one of 4 teams since 2000 to win a game they were trailing by 15 plus points entering the 4th. And the first time in franchise history to do so since 1967, which is before the Super Bowl era even started. The ground game, both offensively and defensively, was near non-existent, and the only reason that they were not at number one spot this week. It's just they needed to do more on both sides of the ball. Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry just dominated them again, similar to the regular season performance from last season. But at the same time, Ed Oliver made a ton of great plays. He was the bright spot for that run defense, forcing that fumble on Henry late to save them the game, all thing considering everything. Besides that, 3.5 yards per carry as a team, gave up 8.2 yards per carry. That is a very rough stat line, but it is against Baltimore, so there is some grains of salt throughout all of that. The passing defense, not really a cause for concern just yet. They did give up 11 yards per attempt and 2 touchdowns, but the Ravens never really took advantage of it. Only 19 attempts in this game, so that is also with a grain of salt. Allen put the team on his back in this one once again. 394 yards, 2 touchdowns on 33 for 46 passing. And for as much as I want to say that that is not sustainable for the Bills, they have proved to me time and time again that that is very much sustainable, at least during the regular season. They have time to improve this ground game both offensively and defensively. And until the playoffs come around, you know that this build style is going to work really, really well. There's a reason Josh Allen is getting his jersey retired in Wyoming later on this year, and he's gonna have his jersey retired in Buffalo probably the second after he retires, in however many years that will be. But the Buffalo Bills, the best team in the AFC after week one, and my number 2 team across the entire NFL. Number 1 is the Philadelphia Eagles. That is one way to begin the season for the defending champs. They really turned it on in the second half, shutting down the Cowboys offense after a first half defensive performance that looked unrecognizable from the unit that just won the Super Bowl. Jalen Carter getting himself ejected before the first offensive snap of the game did not help by any means. His presence up front on that line is massive, and it was showcased throughout that first half with Javonte Williams having himself a day, 2 touchdowns on the day. The fumble forced before the weather delay was the turning point in the game. That gave the Eagles all the momentum entering that delay, and they took advantage of it coming out of the delay. The offense looked solid, especially in the first half. Barkley continued his proficiency behind the Eagles' offensive line. Hurts was throwing pretty well. He was running well. He had 2 touchdowns on the day. A.J. Brown being held to a single target and catch in this game was surprising, but at the same time, this Eagles team, they have enough weapons where that did not matter. They still are the defending champs. They still have a little bit of a leeway and some runway ahead of other teams because they're the defending champs. And because of that, they sit on top of the power rankings at the number 1 spot. Quick little rundown. The Rams are at 10, Chargers at 9, Buccaneers at 8, Chiefs at 7, Commanders at 6, Ravens at 5, Lions at 4, the Packers are at 3, Bills are at 2, and the Philadelphia Eagles round things out at number 1. Thank you all for tuning in. Subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all next time. Have yourselves a damn good one.